Welcome to Beach Life Unlocked, episode number 6. My colleague Mike Dodson, myself Mitchell David. Today we're going to be discussing some pitfalls, some overlooked items that buyers and sellers typically do. Coming soon, on the 15th, is the St. Patty's Day Parade here in Ocean City.
Yep.
Mike's Irish, by the way, so he has all the good places to go. Where do you go, Mike?
Home. Watch the parade, right? Because that's always enjoyable.
Right. So the parade's at noon.
Right.
Right, and it starts on 57th, 57th Street.
No.
Yeah, 57th Street, and it goes. And the reason I know that is because I wrote it down. It goes 57th Street to
66th.
57th Street to 45th. We're going to agree to disagree right now, and then we'll
check the tape,
and we'll put it in the chat who's correct, Mike or I.
I'm closer.
No, it's 57th Street to
just looked it up.
To 45th.
I'm not going to argue with you.
Okay. Anyhow, we will move on to that.
Just come to the parade on the 15th. Just be.
What time is it?
12 o'clock.
It is noon. We'll agree on that. And on 45th Street, they do have that little festival area set up.
Yep.
That's an hour earlier, so you can go there at 11 o'clock, and I think that ends at 3 p.m. there. There's like live music, some dancers, green beer, food trucks. What else? Souvenirs and some odds and ends as well. But on a serious note, do you have a certain place that you go to, or no?
Mitch, you know, I don't go out. No. All business.
Anyhow, so actually, Shenanigans, 4th Street and the Boards is a great place to go. Pre-kids, when Em and I used to go out, that's where we would go.
I will say, if I'm going to go find a green beer, Fast Eddie's.
Fast Eddie's?
Fast Eddie's. Great wings.
Okay.
Great beer. And they're not paying me for that, but they can.
Right. We're not getting paid for Shenanigans either, but great spot, great food, great bartenders there as well. So all great, they have music as well. So just a great spot to go, obviously. So, come on down the 15th. Either 62nd Street or 50, or
it's something,
or if it's in that vicinity, all the way down to 45th Street.
The crowd.
Exactly, look for the crowd. So we'll move on to some common mistakes that buyers and sellers make. And Mike and I each have our own lists. I think some maybe overlap. We'll see. We're just going to kind of give some odds and ends information on it. So what's your couple that you might have for buyer mistakes?
I think not getting a home inspection is probably the biggest one for me, because you just never know what could be wrong in a property. Recently, I had a buyer who did get a home inspection.
Who did?
They did get a home inspection, but they waived their right to terminate the contract based on the home inspection, and the heat pump's not working. So that potentially could be a big expense coming their way. So that's
$8,500.
$8,500.
So home inspection runs about $399, $400, and that's going to be for an efficiency all the way up to a 3 or 4 bedroom condo. Mm-hmm. Obviously, single family homes are going to be in the 5s a little bit, and then as you get bigger than that, like a big, gigantic house that has 6 bedrooms, 4,000 or 5,000 square feet, you'll be in the 800s.
Yeah.
But again, I'm with Mike. I'll agree with you on that. And a lot of times, part of negotiations, a buyer might say to you, hey, how do I make my offer look better?
Yep. And
so one of the things that some buyers ask us is, hey, how about removing the home inspection? Mm-hmm. And my response always is,
don't do it.
I don't recommend it. However, this is your offer, not mine.
Right.
And my famous saying is, I will happily help you spend your money any way you want me to. So again, I'll give you my professional opinion, but I have to be with you on that one as well.
Yeah.
That's a doozy, or could be.
It could be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the pushback that we normally get on the home inspection is what? Well, it's only a condo, and what do we have? The water heater?
How much could really go wrong?
Right.
Yeah. Well, a water heater and an air handler, a heat pump, those are expensive items.
That they are.
So, one of those goes out, you could be, several $1,000s off the jump.
Right, and the nice part with Maryland is in the inspection is that during the time frame and even after the inspection, as long as you're all within your time frames, if for some reason you just don't like the report, it's just unsatisfactory to you, you could terminate the contract.
Yep.
Right. We don't. The seller doesn't get the option to do the repairs.
Yeah, like they do in Delaware.
Exactly. So again, you know, we're not saying that in all situations you have to have a home inspection, or you as a buyer who's bought numerous homes, maybe you're a contractor, maybe you have different types of friends and family who are in the business for the big items, and you're okay with that.
Yeah.
But in general, I would agree with Mike on that. One of the mistakes I think that buyers make is they don't realize the difference between a down payment and closing costs.
Closing costs, yeah. I've had that question several times. Well, I'm putting 10,000 down, that'll cover my closing costs, right? No.
It's two separate things.
Two separate things. The down payment is based on your loan. Your closing costs are
based on the purchase price.
Based on the purchase price.
Right. And so, to real quick, as Mike just said, so if you're putting 20% down, and we use easy math, and the property's $300,000, right? You're 60 grand, right? So, but that doesn't close your closing costs.
Yeah.
If it's financed, again, we use easy numbers. We'll say about 4%. So you'll have the 60 grand plus 4%, which is another 12 grand. So now you're at what? $72,000 to buy this property. And that does get lost quite often. Even on people who've bought properties, you know, in the past, because this is primarily a vacation place, second homes, so they haven't maybe purchased a property in a long time.
It's been a while, yeah. Just definitely keep that in mind, because no matter what you buy, you're financing, you're at least 4% that you're going to have to bring to settlement to close that transaction, regardless of your down payment.
Correct. And 4% is a number. I mean, it could be a little bit less than that, but does it? But if you make a cash offer and you're not financed, does that does the closing cost percentage change?
Yeah, because you're not going to have the lender fees, the appraisal fee, all that stuff that you would pay for a finance deal. So you're going to be about 3%.
Correct.
On a cash deal.
Right, and also you won't have escrows.
Right.
So that adds up as well. So escrows would be the money that the lender collects for property insurance, HO6 policy, and property taxes. Yeah. Right. So that's one that I seem to see a lot on that as well.
Yeah. One other thing that as far as buyers go, is I guess shooting for the stars, I would call it. Like, people want to look, everybody wants a really nice property, right? But if you can't afford a really nice property, let's not look at those. You know what I mean? Like,
do you mean like it's over their budget?
Yeah.
Okay. So
it's just not in the cards for them. You know, like, oh, I'd really like to have a 3-bedroom direct oceanfront. My budget's, $350. Well, that's not going to happen. That's not going to work.
You could be disappointed.
Yeah, we're gonna have to be more realistic. So I think it comes down to being realistic as a buyer. And I think that also goes for a seller as well, being realistic. Right? Is my property really worth what I'm asking? Everybody thinks their property is the best, and they want to get top dollar, right? And that's our goal, is to get you top dollar as a listing agent. But if the market's not going to bear it, there's just no.
So do you recommend then your buyers get pre-approved?
Absolutely, yeah. Okay. I mean, honestly, that might be the first step for a buyer, because then you have a realistic picture of what you can afford. Then you start your home search process, right? I've had a lot of buyers that they start their home search process. They think, oh, I got a 700 credit score. I can, I can afford anything. Well, your income may not support that, right? So,
right, it's all about ratios. I think, right? I mean, people forget that you might make a whole bunch of money, but you might also have a lot of debt. Yeah. So your ratio might be out of whack.
The saddest buyers I run into or work with are ones that don't realize how much debt they're really in, and when their lender tells them, well, you're 60% income debt. That's a big number. I mean, you're not even going to get
You're not going to get a loan.
Going to give you a loan when you're that high.
Yeah. So I'll tell you. So that's an interesting part. So I do it this way with pre-approval. So I don't require a pre-approval.
No, I don't require, but I think for a buyer, it's just
Correct.
That way they go into the process knowing exactly what they can afford, what they should be looking at, and what's realistic for them.
Right, but after about the second or third showing, then I think it's really, if you haven't done it yet, again, some agents don't even show property unless you're already pre-approved, right? And that's their prerogative to do so. I just have never found it to be worthwhile to have them go through the process and pulling the credit scores and giving all that stuff and getting dinged initially. So, but what I would say, and I agree with Mike though, if you are a serious buyer and you know where your number is, that's going to help you in your search.
Yeah, for sure. You know, and like you said, I have no problem people coming to town like, oh, we're just starting to look, we're thinking about buying something. You know, we want to see if this makes sense for us. What can we get for, you know, $400,000? What does that look like? Yeah, let's go. You know, let's go take a look. I'll show you what you can get for $400,000, and if it fits what you're looking for, if it fits your family's needs, you know, then at that point, let's get that pre-approval and let's start seriously looking, right? If it's just not in the, I mean, I've had, you know, buyers come one time, and they're like, you know what, it's just not going to work for us. It doesn't make sense for us right now, or, you know, we really thought we could get more for this money. You know, and then, you know, we don't see them again for a while until it makes sense for them.
So they get the numbers straight.
Yeah, right. Until the numbers match up and it makes sense.
Right. So when you first started your common mistake, I thought you were going to go like they were trying to pick the perfect property.
Yeah. Well,
right?
that's another. I mean, that kind of goes
together.
Yeah. Because it doesn't exist.
Right.
I mean, unless you're well off and you can afford anything.
And
you have, obviously you could, you know, unlimited money, you could find what you're looking for, right? I mean, it's out there, or can be built.
Correct, or it can be built.
Yeah.
And I think the common mistake a buyer makes is they overlook a property that would fit them perfectly well, being price point, location, size, all those things. But for one or two small reasons, they kind of overlook it. Again, we'll keep showing properties. It's fine with us either way, but also it becomes, there's a frustration part of this, right? Buying a home should be fun.
Yeah,
right.
And I think us as agents, we kind of get frustrated because we want to help them, try to guide them in the right direction. And you know, if you receive a lot of pushback, it can be frustrating for us. Right? But for a buyer, especially, if they're looking for that perfect property, and you know you're probably never going to find it, right? It's going to frustrate you because why can't I find what I'm looking for?
Right, exactly. Well, then you get frustrated with the agent, right? Because then you don't think they're actually, you know, kind of working for you, right? So that's okay. So that's a nice combination of pre-approval and have realistic expectations on what you're looking for, right? Okay. And then, you know, for me, I think a big one is not getting emotionally attached to a property. And here's why. Look, buying property is emotional in general, right? I mean, because that's part of this whole thing. And
it's a big decision.
It is a huge decision, and I'm a firm believer that when you walk into the property, you'll know when it's your property. But what happens sometimes too, though, is in that situation, sometimes they overlook items on a home inspection. They overlook maybe the building they're buying is, while the unit's perfect, maybe the building doesn't have the amenities that we had discussed before, but they fell in love with this, and then there's some buyer's regret.
Yeah, buyer's remorse is real. You know, if somebody's looking for a property, say a condo in a building with a pool, but they find a property that fits everything but doesn't have a pool, and they're like, you know what, we're just going to buy this. I've had a lot of buyers be like, man, that pool is huge. We really shouldn't have settled. We should have made sure we had maybe given up a little bit on the condo itself, the unit itself, for the pool. Right.
Yeah, I mean, I'll agree with you. I think there's two items that are non-negotiable. If somebody tells me, typically an elevator and a pool. Because the condo
you
building,
don't realize how much you miss those items when you don't have them.
Exactly, and the condo building is not going to build a pool or put an elevator in after the fact. Right. Yeah. So again, you know, this is a business decision. While as much as it's emotional, you should be able to walk away.
Yeah, I think it goes for all buyers and sellers. If the deal just doesn't make sense, it doesn't actually fit what you're looking for, you got to be able to cut the cord.
I agree, 100%.
Right. I mean, obviously, as agents, we don't want to lose a deal, but I also don't want a buyer to come back to me a year from now and go, we really made the wrong decision here.
Yeah.
You know, I had I reached out to a buyer that purchased last year, just to wish them happy, anniversary on their purchase, and the response back I got was, this is fantastic, we love the unit, all our friends come and they love it, and we get so many compliments, and that's the best thing.
It is.
Outside of recommending me to your friends, that's the best thing I can hear. If the person's happy with their purchase, because I don't want somebody to come back to me and look, I'm not happy with what I bought, where I made a bad decision here, and I'd rather people not buy rather than just to buy.
Yeah. I had the same thing. I had a client who was really set on a certain building, and we just could not find anything in the building. And then the ones that we could find in the building, we made offers, but it wasn't the price point that kind of worked for them. So they started to get in the spot where they were going to settle. Right, and that's a very
just take this one.
Yeah, it's a very bad spot to be in, as a buyer's agent, So we actually had looked at a property. I wrote the offer for them. We had a conversation. I explained to them, hey, here's the difference of the two buildings. Are you going to see yourself happy here in 3 years? And if the answer is no, because really the other question you have to ask yourself is, a lot of people are driving 3 and 4 hours to the beach. Do you see yourself leaving the comforts of your home to come to the place that you're buying?
Yeah. Are you going to be chomping at the bit to get down here?
Correct. And to me, the buildings that they were looking at and about to settle on was completely different. I mean, the one building had a movie theater, indoor pool, outdoor pool, billiards.
Must be Sea-Watch.
It was Sea-Watch. Beautiful. And then they were going to go to a building that just had a pool, an outdoor pool, and that was it. But they wanted to be able to swim in the wintertime. They wanted one of their kids played sports and loves the gym, loves a fitness room. And so I, in good faith, I just said to them, you need to make a very difficult decision here on, do you wait or do you buy?
How important are these items really?
Exactly.
And if it's something that you're going to get a lot of use out of, actually checks a box on your list, like we really do want to use an indoor pool in the winter. Well, obviously you're not getting that over here with this building only having an outdoor pool. Let's focus here, right, and just forget that. Even if the unit's perfect, does it fit your lifestyle and what you're actually looking for?
Yeah, that's key. So try not, while buying property is emotional, try not to get emotionally attached to the property if it doesn't meet the needs or it doesn't meet your price point. Like, don't go to your top limit where you become house poor on a vacation property that is extra.
Yeah, then all you do is worry, stress about making the payments.
Exactly. Any other ones?
So just for buyers in general, I can't really think. I mean, there's so many mistakes people make. It's just.
Okay, well, I got one for you. I got one last one that I thought of is understanding costs. Right? So Mike and I talk about this to our clients all the time, and there's a couple nuances to Ocean City, like the HO6 policy that you have to have, the fixture fee, right? That people don't realize. And obviously we have real estate taxes, but in town limits you have town, county, state, right? Condo fee. If you buy in Sunset Island, you have an HOA fee on top of that, or Heron Harbor. So I think sometimes when you're having a conversation and they're like, it's all price, you need to think about those incidentals. Yeah. I mean, because we have clients, and I think we were laughing about a conversation we had the other day is, remember, you still have a life outside of buying this property, and there might be some things that you want to do.
Yeah, I had a buyer tell me, I have 3 things that I like to do, and I'm not giving them up. When I buy, it's going to be something that actually fits my lifestyle, something I can afford, that I'm not going to have to stress over, and I can still do these 3 things.
Brilliant.
My hobbies outside of that. And I think that's fantastic.
Absolutely.
Don't buy a property just to buy a property. I'm sure you've had this. People are like, I just want a place at the beach.
Yeah.
That's great. Is it going to work for you? Does it make sense financially? Are you actually going to get use out of it? Right? Do you have time to come down and use it? And get that value out of it and enjoy it for yourself. If you have to work, an extra shift or whatever, get a second job to, cover the payments on it. Well, when are you coming down to enjoy it? Now you're just paying on something you're not using.
Correct. Right. So I think this should be reiterated, and I know Mike does and I do all the time, but I'll do it again here, is you really need to see yourself leaving your home, wherever it is, coming here.
Yeah.
And if you don't see that, you don't envision that, it's like, yeah, possibly, or no, my house is way better. I have a pool here and this there, and I have that. And, if I come to this one, well, then you're just settling. And at that point in time, I would rather you wait.
Yeah, wait until it makes sense.
Exactly.
And then you have time to come enjoy it. I know when my wife and we first purchased in Ocean City in 2018, the goal was to rent it, right? It was going to be an investment property for myself. Turns out my wife had a lot more time free than I realized, and she was down here every weekend, right? So, she'd get off work on Fridays, and I'd come down when I could, but, she'd get off on Friday, and her and the kids would come down Friday night and stay here until Sunday afternoon as late as she could. So for us, it made sense because she was getting use out of it.
Right.
And then we ended up moving here full time in 2019, and
here you are now, 2025.
2025, haven't looked back.
So
honestly, the best decision we've ever made.
Well, look, I say this all the time. There's something about being at the beach all the time. Right?
Yeah.
It's. I don't live on the island. I drive from Berlin in, which is not too far out, to our office on 78th Street. Nothing better than coming across the Route 50 or 90 bridge in the morning time, sun's coming up. It just relaxes you in general.
Every time I come across the 90 bridge, if I have a kid in the car with me, I'm like, isn't that beautiful? Just coming into town, it's just awesome. Yeah. I think they're tired of hearing that.
I'm sure they are. And they don't appreciate it, right?
I still do it every time.
Yeah, right.
I'm not going to stop.
Right. Well, good. So I think that we kind of covered some good stuff on buyers. I think that kind of gives some help, and obviously we're going to help guide you through the process. These are just a couple pitfalls or a few pitfalls that we kind of normally see in a transaction that you really want to try to avoid. Sellers are going to be in the same situation.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of overlap with buyers and sellers that people don't realize, and it has a lot to do with price, right? As a seller, like I said before, a lot of sellers, everybody thinks they have the best unit, right? They're just decorated the best, they have the best furniture. That's not always the case, right? So,
it is not.
So when people think, I bought this 2 years ago, it had to have gone up, $200,000 right by now. Right. No.
Right.
Not necessarily. Unless you really did a complete overhaul,
correct,
where you go and gut it and make everything top end. I think buyers and sellers both have unrealistic expectations sometimes, and I think for you, you just recently went through this with a listing. You went to a listing appointment and recommended a price, or price parameters for a person.
Range, yeah.
And the seller ended up speaking with another agent who said, "Oh, you could get more than that." And do you know what property I'm talking about?
No.
It's still sitting on the market. I won't go into details because it's still on the market.
Is it still on the market?
It is still on the market. It's going on, I believe, 100 and some days now on the market because they're overpriced.
Right.
Had they, listened to you, they'd probably be planning their next vacation with the money that they made.
Yeah, I try not to look back.
Yeah.
Right. Because we don't win them all.
Yeah.
Right. We don't.
Yeah.
But what we try to do is be honest and give you a realistic expectation. Yeah. Because look, I tell a story all the time. When I was in real estate class many moons ago, and I was having a discussion with an argument with the instructor. Shocker, right? That I was right and they were wrong. But he actually said something that's kind of stayed with me this whole time is, when you list a property for a seller, and let's say I don't agree with the price, let's say it's overpriced. What does and you've told the seller this, like you've had the conversation, hey, Mr. Seller, Mrs. Seller, I think your range is going to be here, but I'm going to take the listing because everybody wants listings, right? Get the listing. And so you're like, okay, what number do you want? The teacher was like, well, you actually just lied to your client, right?
You're doing them
a disservice.
I kind of agree. You're doing them and yourself a disservice.
Right.
Nobody wants to take a listing, right? It does cost us. It costs money to get a listing.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though, and this is what I didn't get, and this is what I was going to pose to you: is the teacher said, when you give them that number, or you put the number in writing, what's their expectation?
The expectation is that number.
That number.
Yeah.
And so now you're advertising what you think it's worth, and so they believe in you to get that done, even though you didn't come up with that number. So yeah, that's
nothing more frustrating.
It's a tough one.
Yeah, and I think we do it right. Like he said, we've lost some. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And sometimes we lose them by walking away.
Correct.
Right, because it just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense to put the money out, spend the time on a property that's just not going to sell. Have we been wrong before?
Absolutely.
We have been.
Yeah.
But
have been.
Most of the time, if you look at the numbers and what the market can bear, you can get a pretty good idea of what a property is worth. And for somebody a seller to say, no, it's worth, $25,000 more, maybe if the perfect buyer came along, but not every property gets the perfect buyer.
Well, and that's the thing. And so what happens is if you look, it only takes one buyer to buy a property, right? The problem is the market yielding that one buyer for the property that you have? And if it does, great, then you're going to hit it out of the ballpark. The problem is that's not the norm. And so what ends up happening is you die a slow death by keep on reducing the price, right? And because eventually somebody will buy it.
To the right price.
To the right price.
Throw some money at you.
Yeah, I definitely think that's super important is your pricing.
Yeah.
And I think mine goes right in line with that as well. Is if you are a seller and you do get an offer, like an immediate offer, and it's not the price, and you think it's a lowball offer, and you don't negotiate, I think that's a huge pitfall.
Just saying
by not engaging.
Yeah.
Right?
If you get an offer from the jump, let's say you're 2 days on the market and an offer comes in and it's not the number you want, what does it hurt going back and saying, look, here's where we are, here's what we're looking for. If you're willing to come to this number, the property's yours.
Right.
They say no. They may say no. Well, then you're 2 days on the market, and you continue on with your marketing plan and get it out in front of more and more buyers. But it's just saying no and just
getting angry.
Yeah, getting angry about it. Like you've been insulted.
Yes, right.
Well, sometimes things, you get insulted in life. I mean,
well, but my thing is this, and I think this is part of what we talk about in our listing meetings is, look, an offer is a start of a negotiation.
Right.
It's not the end of a negotiation. It's actually the start. And so I would rather have a lowball offer than no offers.
Yeah,
right.
Sure.
Because at least at that point in time, you can go back to them with maybe a crappy counteroffer. Yeah. Because your point is, hey, we hear you and we appreciate your offer, but it's unrealistic, and here's our response.
Buyers a lot of times they say, let's make an offer. I'm going to go low so if I can't get a deal.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
But they're willing and able to come to your number, or at least somewhat close. Right. They're somewhere in the middle. I think in any deal that you give a little, we give a little, and we get this thing closed, get this thing sold. So yeah, just like I said, just saying no from the jump and just because you're insulted, that's insulting. Get away from me. I don't want to do business with you. Right. Okay, well, you may have lost your only opportunity.
Well, and just this is again anecdotal for us. There's going to be other agents who have other opinions about this. I'm a firm believer that typically your first offers are always your most excited buyers, because they're on the jump. They want their buyer's agent to write that offer. They're trying to do best terms and conditions. While it may not be what you think your property's worth, that person's super excited. And look, you never, as a seller, me say this a million times, you never want to lose the excitement that you have in a buyer.
Yeah, you want to harness that.
Harness it.
And I'll tell you just a quick story. So I had a listing a while back, and I gave her the price range, and I said, here's what I think it's worth, where you're going to end up selling this thing. They wanted to go about $20,000 higher than I recommended, actually $25,000 higher. And then I took the listing with the understanding that if in 14 days we do not have an offer in hand, we're going to drop this to where I think it should be.
To market value. Yeah.
To market value. Before we went on the market, we received an offer on that house. Buyer never even saw the property. They sent us an offer at right in the range that I had said I thought the property would sell for. The seller did not, they wanted to sit on it. Oh, I'm not taking that offer. I want my number. So we went on the market. And the buyer waited patiently. We told them, I said, look, if you come up a little bit, we might be able to make a deal. They didn't want to come up. They said, we'll wait. We sat on the market for 30 days. And we ended up settling with that buyer. That buyer ended up buying that property that initially made the offer.
At that price, they could.
We got them up $10,000.
Okay.
Which actually was just below where I was going to list it, recommend listing it at.
Okay.
Cash, no home inspection.
So a beautiful offer.
It was. I mean, it was clean.
Right.
And that's where the seller finally realized that, you know what, I'm not going to get the number I want. Mike was right. Let's just get this thing sold and move on.
Right, and so again, in this situation, all we're saying is that be flexible, understand that doesn't have to be the end number. Mm-hmm. It can be a start of a great conversation that leads you to great terms and conditions to get the property sold, right?
Right.
So that's a good point. What's your next one?
So I think, you ever had a seller limit showings? I don't want showing these days.
Unfortunately I have.
I think you're doing yourself a huge disservice, right? Because not everybody, especially here in Ocean City, the majority of our showings are on the weekends.
True.
Right? Because people are coming from out of town. These are second homes. So the only time they have, because they're working during the week, is Saturday or Sunday to come down to take a look at things. I've had sellers in the past that, well, Saturdays or Sundays is family time. Okay, I understand that, and I think that's beautiful. However, I've got 6 people that want to come see your house on Saturday. Do you really want to sell this property? Because if not, let's take it off the market. Right. Because if you're not going to allow these buyers to come in to see the house, because I think it goes back to a pitfall for buyers. Buyers need to see things in person.
Right.
And so if we're limiting days and times when people can come by and see the property, you very well may lose the best offer, the best deal possible.
Yeah, I agree. The more hurdles you have to see a property, the more issues you're going to have in selling your home. And again, there's always an exception. Look, we understand that. In general, though, if you're limiting access to your property, you're limiting the buyers to your property.
Yeah, you need to be flexible.
Got to be flexible.
I mean, the good part about Ocean City is a lot of these are second homes, so people aren't here all the time, and so we are able to get buyers in. But when you come across a seller that's not allowing,
correct,
certain times or days, they're the ones that are going to sit on the market for the most part, most likely going to sit on the market for longer.
Right, and the big issue we have here is not that the owners are here, but it's rented.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
So what we'll say is, if you're in a market that's a primary and you're the seller or you're the agent and you just aren't flexible getting out because of kids or animals or whatever else, here for us it's just rented.
Yeah.
Right,
that's a good point.
And so sometimes it's just better to wait, or because most agents understand that window on Saturdays from 11 to 2 are going to be we're all going to be jammed.
We're going
to be lined up showing the properties. Yeah. So I agree 1,000% with Mike on that ease of access. And so another big one for me is it's twofold. Is if you're listing your property, you never get a second chance to make a first impression, right? So like neglecting repairs.
Yep.
Like, I know it sounds silly and it's small, but like torn screens or stains on your carpet or bad paint jobs.
Yep. Or not painting at all.
Or not painting at all.
Just has been years since the place has been painted. I mean, a fresh coat of paint can do wonders.
It's amazing, and I equate this. Here's my analogy: if you go into a restaurant and you sit down, it's a beautiful restaurant, right? Kind of like you see the property online, and you're super excited, and this is a restaurant. You're super excited. You walk in, and you get a crappy appetizer. What do you think is going to happen the rest of the meal?
Meal's ruined.
And whether or not it is or isn't,
Yeah.
you're probably going to be looking for all the bad things.
Yeah, you're going to look for the flaws
right away.
Yeah.
And so if you're a seller and you have some items that could easily be fixed for very little money, and you opt not to do it, what you're doing is that buyer's coming in, and as soon as they walk in, they're soaking up that, and they're like, oh gosh, look at this, and then all of a sudden,
the space just doesn't feel clean, or you start getting concerned about what else could be wrong in here. What am I not seeing?
What am I seeing? And they're going to start picking it apart.
Yeah.
And I will say that, and two things happen when they pick it apart. They pick it apart and they just want to leave, or they pick it apart and do what? Lowball offer.
Yeah, they might get an offer, but they're not coming in anywhere near your number.
Anywhere near your number. Now that would go back to me as to the seller as, hey, it starts a negotiation,
right.
So don't be upset. Don't take it personal, right?
Right. But I think those things can be avoided. Also decluttering, right?
Absolutely.
If you have stuff just piled up, when people come in, they can't envision their stuff
Correct.
being there.
Correct.
Because that space is now taken up by whatever. If it's papers or just a blanket, a pile of blankets, whatever it is. Clean up, make the space feel as open and airy as possible. So that when people come in, they can say, okay, I could see my stuff in here. I can make this my own, because that's what it's going to become. It's going to become somebody else's stuff.
Somebody else's stuff in there.
Somebody else's stuff in there.
And they're fine with that, but like Mike said, they have to envision it. So again, you really need to go the extra step and get your property ready, both inside and outside, right? I mean, again, for the condos, it's going to be a different beast, because obviously it is what it is on the outside of the building. But for the inside, you really just need to do those things. Look, we try to stage properties, but sometimes
people have too much stuff.
And staging just isn't going to help it.
There's not enough storage.
There's not enough storage to move everything. Like Mike and I are famous for going in and literally taking everything off the counters, putting them in closets, and at some point in time, there's just not enough room in there anymore.
I've got stuff in the back of my truck now that I've taken out of units just to get it ready, so it doesn't look so junky.
Right.
I mean, that's a horrible word, but like, a place looks junky, that's how it's going to feel when buyers walk in. It's just not going to feel, if they're looking for a nice place or trying to envision their stuff in there. If your junky stuff is just I hate to put it that way, but that's what it is.
No, it's true. I mean, the thing is, we're out every day showing properties or talking to the sellers, and so we're actually walking to properties, and we have our buyers look at us and go, why did they leave it like this? Like I wouldn't buy this property because it's like this.
Sometimes I don't know.
We don't know.
I don't have an answer for you.
Well, and it could be
it makes zero sense.
Well, it could be that the seller just doesn't have the wherewithal, maybe the monies to be able to do that, and that's. But then the seller then has to understand too that they're going to get beat up on the price.
Yeah, right. And I think I know you don't want to talk about agency, but having a good agent that can guide you as a seller, like what is actually going to make this space look better? What do tell you as a seller, like what do you need to do to sell this property?
Well, I absolutely agree.
Like I said, I got stuff in the back of my truck now that my kids try to get in. Like, what is all this stuff? But at some point, it's going to go back to wherever it came from. But for me, I have no issue. Look, let's get some stuff out of here. If I got to take it and put it in my office, for the time being, that's what we'll do.
Yeah, again, I know this is a Coach Rodolini, Salisbury University saying, and that's what it was, is you never get a second chance to make a first impression, which then kind of, and I know I'm going back on this, but what takes me to my next thing is, it's got to be marketed properly, like pictures, a 3D tour, video, drone shots, like sellers sometimes don't realize that they're like, I don't want to pay X amount of commission.
I'll take the photos myself.
Exactly. Or the agent is coming in with their cell phone, like, dude, I take great pictures with my cell phone. I can promise you this.
You can tell right away.
We can see it. Everybody can see it. The pixels aren't right. If they're not in the frame right. And remember, as a seller, you're paying that listing agent. And if the listing agent is not willing to have a professional
invest in your
invest
property.
in you,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Because that's what we're doing, right?
Yeah.
You're paying us to do something, but if we're not then in return offering services through our subcontractors to help with the staging or to help with the photos, and so my big issue is this: is that sellers don't pay enough attention to what a listing agent's going to do for them. So don't overlook that. That's a huge pitfall.
Yeah, and I'm sitting here laughing to myself because as a buyer, don't trust the photos.
Right.
That's why I come see it in person, because if you get a professional photographer can do wonders for a property.
Crazy.
Right, and make it look like it's light and beautiful inside, and you get in there, it's dark.
Yes.
So as a seller, you want those photos because it makes it puts your property in a better light. But then as a buyer, you come see the property for yourself because you can't always trust.
Just to make sure that the photos match the actual property in real life. Right. And so as a seller, when you're having that conversation, and again, like Mike and I said, I don't want to go too much into agency because we kind of, had that conversation back and forth, but you really need to understand what package it is that you're getting. And I know the cliches are, a dime a dozen, but you really do get what you pay for in most instances, and you should know what that is. And so please don't overlook how your property is being marketed and the professionalism of the marketing. As agents, again, I'm using a broad brush here. We're not photographers, right? We're not. So we better be hiring somebody to do that for us.
Yeah. I've tried to take photos, and as soon as you upload them, you can tell right away. Like, this is not.
Yeah.
We need to get somebody in here.
Right.
Knows what they're doing.
No, we've
had
clients send us pictures that they've taken.
I really like this photo to be the main photo. I think it's a great picture.
And you're like looking at it, you're like, well, here's my picture, then here's my picture with Lana. I'm sorry, I got to take Lana's picture because it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And so please, really hone in on that as part of it is, not making sure that your property is ready. So then when you get the photos, it then shows that way.
Yeah. So for me, one thing I just thought of, I think this goes for buyers and sellers, both, is getting bad advice, right? Everyone's got a cousin or a brother or something that I know what I'm doing. I've done so many transactions. I know how to, every property's different, right? Every transaction is different. There's things that come up in one transaction that never come up in another.
Different timing.
Right, exactly. And, I've had transactions where it was going too easy, right? Things were moving smoothly, and then nothing happens. And then other transactions where, there's a lien on the property. The seller hasn't paid their taxes in 6 years. Things that come up that people are like, oh, don't worry about all that, or don't worry about this. Well, that could be a major problem. And if you don't have that information up front from a reliable source, it could hurt you.
Yeah, I agree. I think too many people rely on advice from people they know, which is fine. Except remember, like Mike just said, especially if that advice was somebody who's never bought here, right? They don't understand.
I bought a lot of houses. It's the same everywhere.
It's not. I've bought a lot of houses. Yeah. It's not the same because it's like this. It's like Marigot Beach is different than Golden Sands.
Right.
Golden Sands is different than Sea-Watch. Sea-Watch is different than the Carousel, and so it's all those nuances. To your point of it's just financing is not financing in different buildings.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Sea-Watch has aluminum wiring in it, right? Some people hate aluminum wiring. Some people don't care about it. But again,
those are things to consider, obviously, in any.
Exactly, and people who aren't here are giving you advice to kind of help you try to navigate it. You want to make sure that and look, they're probably want to do the best for you. But they just don't know.
They don't know.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. All my cousins sold their house themselves. I don't really need an agent. Really? Where did they sell their house? Oh, not here. Okay. Because that makes sense. Right. It's a different beast down here. It's a different world, right? There's a lot of things that you have as a seller you have to provide to a buyer that if you try to sell a condo yourself and you don't know what those are, you get yourself in a lot of trouble.
You open yourself up for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Knowing that you need to get the condo docs and provide them to the buyer within 15 days of settlement, right? A lot of sellers don't even know where to go to get that.
Well, and if there's a change within those documents too, you're also supposed to update those change as well up to a certain threshold. So, like to Mike's point, there's just nuances to all these things. And again, we realize there's some people out there who are well equipped to be able to buy and sell on their own without an agent, and we get that. The difference for our market here, even if it's Ocean Pines or Berlin or Dewey or Bethany, a lot of times you're a 3-hour trip away. You're not here local. The seller's not here either. And so you're relying on some expertise from people who are here in and out of it all day long. So yeah, be weary on the advice that you're getting out there, or thinking that I've done it in the past, I can do it again. Potentially you can, wouldn't say you can't.
Yeah, like you said, there are some people that are equipped to sell a property or buy a property on their own. Usually they're attorneys. Somebody that understands contracts. But for the most part, I had a seller a while back. They tried to sell their own property. It was a FSBO, for sale by owner. And I actually had a client that was interested in seeing the property, so I contacted them and went and showed the property. And I called him afterwards and I said, look, my buyer's not interested in your property, but there's some things that you could be doing that would sell this house pretty quick. They ended up hiring me after having it on the market. I want to say it was about 4 months they had it on the market for themselves as a for sale by owner. I took over the listing and we sold it within 30 days at a price higher than they even expected.
Right.
They were asking less than we actually sold it for.
Yeah.
So
that's common.
Yeah.
And you try to explain to people that's actually the norm, where if you're selling it yourself, you're probably going to take less than an agent, or if you're an unrepresented buyer, typically you're going to pay more than you would pay if you had an agent. I mean, honestly, you can just Google the stats. It's out there for everybody to do. It's a hard conversation for us to have with people who are unrepresented because obviously, Mike and I make money, and we're not shy to say this. We're commission based. We have to offer you something for us to get paid, and so obviously it's in our best benefit for us to use you. But don't believe us. You
look it up.
And
that's another thing I think people don't do, buyers and sellers, is do your research. Research your market. Learn as much as you can about what's happening in that market. The easiest way to do that is to contact an agent, right? A local agent in that market that knows what they're doing, knows their numbers, and knows how to market your property properly. Don't skip. I'll just hire somebody that can handle it. Well, do you know if that person's capable?
Which goes back to our conversation last time was what? Do your research on how to pick an agent.
Right, pick the right agent. That's another thing some people do is they pick the wrong agent.
Right.
There may be a new agent, maybe a seasoned agent that just they're trying to get a listing, like you said earlier, just want to take a listing, and they'll you got a number, great, let's do that number, throw some photos up from my cell phone and be done with it. For agents like that, they're just looking for volume. Right. They're not really focused on getting your property sold necessarily.
Correct.
And so finding the right agent, an agent that's actually going to work for you, I think is key for a buyer and a seller.
Yeah, just in general, vetting that process
Have a
as we
conversation.
discussed in detail. Yeah, exactly. Because that's important.
Read the reviews.
And it's
We
true.
keep going back to that.
It is, but
I think
it's true.
Because it's firsthand information and knowledge from someone that's worked with
Already going through the process
Right.
with you, exactly, and that's what it is. It's a process. So it's easily identifiable if that agent does or doesn't have a process, and if they don't and they're kind of scattered, then that becomes that should be a red flag to you.
Absolutely.
as well.
Yeah.
Can you think of anything else for buyers or sellers? I'm pretty much, I think we kind of overlap nice. I did write down a couple things, so I'll take a quick peek at my notes just to make sure I didn't miss anything. But no, I'm pretty much where Mike was. I think we discussed it, but decluttering, I think that's.
Yeah, you gotta have you don't want to have a poor property presentation. You want your property to be pristine and marketed in the best light.
Yeah. And I guess we could probably add this into it. And again, this would just be a game time decision is, some sellers, and I do recommend it, is you actually have a pre-inspection on the property, have a home inspector come out.
That way you're not surprised.
You're not surprised. And then look, if there are some small items that are going to, come up on the thing, you can take care of them for a little bit of money. I'm a firm believer is don't spend money that you can't make back in a transaction, because just to spend money, it doesn't do you any good. But sometimes the guidance of a home inspection might be like, oh gosh, my HVAC system is bad. Yeah. And so maybe you do address that to make it more efficient for yourself and then an easier purchase. In this situation where Mike's client did a home inspection but waived the right to negotiate, obviously the buyer was the seller was in a really good position because they weren't obligated to fix it, and had they,
and to my buyer's, defense, the property looks beautiful. Inside and out. We did not expect any issues to come up.
Did you recommend that they do a no?
Absolutely. I even verified with them. I said, I'm just going to make sure I got this right. You want to waive your opportunity to negotiate and terminate this contract based on the home inspection? Yes. We just went it for our knowledge. Okay, and that's your decision. I would never recommend somebody doing that, but that's what they chose to do, and it may not be a big deal. It sounds like the fix may just be getting somebody out there to service it. Maybe it's not communicating with the air handler on the inside, because the heat pump looks newer. And so it shouldn't have gone out, right? It may just be an easy fix, but it potentially could be an expensive fix. Right. Like you said, $8,500 to replace that. So we're hopeful. Good. That's not the case, but I think having that ability to negotiate that fix or that repair would be kind of nice right now for my buyer.
It would be. Any final items on your list that we didn't cover?
No, I think we covered pretty much everything from inspections to hiring the right agent. I think it's all, there's far more things that buyers and sellers could do, as far as mistakes go. But I think we covered the big ones. Okay. The most important.
Well, great. So we appreciate your time as always. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching the videos. Mike and I are always available. You can give us a ring. You can always message us through our Facebook pages. We have a lot of stuff going on our Facebook and our Instagram. So we have all kinds of, coming soon, solds. These videos are on there, little clips. So feel free to reach out to us, or you can visit our website.
BeachLifeCity.com.
Thank you very much. Have a great day.